Welcome back to Witness on food crisis in India spinning out of control. Destitutes at one end and the affluent on the other. For them, nothing changes, whether glut or scarcity. Yogesh Pawar brings you the story.
India's food crisis, myth or reality? If anything, it seems that in the new India, there is more food and newer ways of buying it. Like shoppers at this store, selling exotic foods from all over the world, who may be forgiven for claiming ignorance of a threat to food security.
This is absolutely an amazing section. It's a lot like what you would find abroad. It's more like fresh olives and sun-dried tomatoes and aubergines and very exotic things like artichokes and feta cheese, which is marinated.
So where does the food shortage and food crisis exist?
Food hasn't disappeared from the shelves. In fact, there is plenty to buy for those who can spend the money. So for deep pockets, there's no really food security crisis of sorts. And for the poor, there was always a crisis, in spite of bumper harvests and in spite of inflation, sometimes touching a low of 3 and 4%.
Wow, this one is very exclusive, I think. It's for 40,875.
This is the great irony. Even as prices skyrocket, for those who can afford it, there is food in plenty. For those who can't, food has always been scarce, even in times of glut. Remember these images from not long ago of godowns of wheat bursting at the seams, while hunger and malnutrition continued unabated.
नहीं खाल्लं तर मग आता मला कधी-कधी पोट मारावं लागतं.
महंगाई तो इतनी बढ़ चुकी है कि आदमी आगे चल के खाली पानी ही पिएगा.
That, for India's poor, is the real food crisis. A flawed public distribution system which blocks food from reaching the hungry, whether in times of glut or scarcity. So in some ways, it's the middle class hit hardest, not so much by a shortage of food, but by spiraling prices. Like the family of Raja Tambe, who like so many other Indians, are grappling with a steep rise in prices.
Present crisis of inflation has generated a response from larger sections of the society than earlier periods of inflation. That's primarily because in earlier periods of inflation, such high levels of food inflation was not visible. In fact, in the present period of inflation, you see rice, oil seeds, or other forms of oils and all, they record very high levels of price rise compared to earlier periods. So you have a real food price increase taking place, which obviously would affect the middle class in a greater way than before, because earlier periods were primarily driven by either metal prices or petroleum prices. Quite differently, this time you have an inflation which is driven primarily by increase in food prices.
The government's answer we know, a series of steps to check prices, which they say will take effect in a few weeks, and also to import food grains to make up a buffer stock. So, for the poor, no guarantee whether the wheat from Australia meant for them will ever reach, and for India's affluent, olive oil from Spain within grasp and in plenty. In Mumbai, Yogesh Pawar for NDTV.